right, man. Nice work.
Thanks.
Oh, so this is like the work that you put into these scripts. It's like hundreds or thousands of pounds worth of work that you're just giving away.
Yeah. Do you know what we found so far is that the rewarding part about it is that we've had feedback from people where they've made changes to it and given it back to us, which has made us better as well. So, yeah.
Yeah, we'll get to that. So I kind of want to start, this is some high-level stuff you've shared. So I want to take it down a minute and like, because I think there's a lot of people in the room like me. I have a client, right? I do their SEO, but I also happen to manage their AdWords account. It's not a very big account. I've never used any sort of automation. I've never used a script. At what level, is there a certain budget level where you start considering this stuff? And, what do you tell beginners, more like me?
It's a great question. Actually, my advice would be that the smaller it is, the more likely that your own bid management solution is to work for you. So where I found that the third-party tools are successful is often with lots of data. But when it gets to scenarios where there's not very much data at all, I find that they generally do a terrible job. So it's the input at that stage of commercial knowledge, and one or two maybe of the simpler ones. Maybe you're not going to go right to the end of a machine learning algorithm, but certainly to do with tapping into the responsiveness of different times of day, as an example, or labeling in order to decide how much you should be bidding on certain keywords. So that's where I would start, and certainly say that it's a useful thing, possibly even more useful at that lower budget level, and a worthwhile investment in. And I know everyone says always like learn how to code. It's getting to that moment, like that year of the mobile with Google, where every year was the year of the mobile. Well, it kind of finally came around, and people have been saying, well, let's learn how to code. It's going to happen in the next few years, particularly as it's probably easier than most people think in the first instance.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of in-house people right at the borderline where they're not automating anything, and maybe they should, and I'm sure you get a lot of good clients that way. Let's go to some of these questions. Roberto asked, how do the bidding scripts react in a campaign limited by daily budget?
So that's a good question. Campaigns limited by daily budget is not a hugely efficient way to manage your advertising spend. And I could probably explain that better with a kind of diagram. But we used to have a saying, which is tap it, don't cap it. So what you're doing which sounds really dirty, but it's not, I promise. It's AdWords. It's just data, I promise. But the logic goes something like this. It's probably easier with a diagram, but let me try anyway. If you set a budget campaign, what you're essentially saying to Google is, like a budget limit, is I'm going to close my doors at 10 p.m. or 12 p.m. Let's say that your budget cap is restricting your impressions by 50%. You're saying, I'm going to stop advertising at 12 p.m. Whereas what you're better off doing is controlling that spend by ROI, which you can do by controlling the bids. So if you were to, instead of bidding £1 all day, which cuts you off at 12 p.m. in a very simplified example, in fact, limited your clicks to 50p and let it go for the whole day, you would end up with net more clicks, but all cheaper clicks. So you'd spend the same, but you would have essentially driven better ROI because you're getting people in for cheaper. I hope I kind of explained that relatively well, but bidding systems in general don't tend to work well with budget caps. So most bidding systems should be built to drive better ROAS, better ROI, not drive towards a target budget.
Interesting. So you talked a little bit about weather, some of those triggers. How do you weigh different bidding segments? Example, weather, device, and time, when they contradict each other, when they have different effects. How do your algorithms deal with that?
So that's a really good question, and something that you have to account for, in that I've seen certain accounts where people will apply these different multipliers, and suddenly you add them all up, and it's like you're bidding 400% more than your original click was. But there are loads of tools to help you visualize that, even within AdWords, that help you. I can't remember exactly where it is, but I will look it up afterwards and include it in the notes. But it lets you see how many different multipliers you've got applied to specific campaigns.
All right. So Alex asked, do you have a tool that you use to apply and schedule scripts over multiple AdWords accounts at once?
You can use scripts at MCC level, which allows you to apply scripts all at the same time. to multiple accounts. I wouldn't generally recommend running different clients from the same MCC. That can get very dangerous when one client requires a different logic to another, and they respond differently, and somehow you've applied one bidding logic to the wrong client. It's never happened to me before. I would highly recommend against that, but at MCC levels, you can hold all of your own different AdWords accounts and then build logic into there to apply them at scale. Yeah.
So have you ever seen, because I'm sure I would do this if I tried it, you run a script and it just goes amok, and you're bidding way too much. It just has the complete opposite effect. Do you see clients do that?
Yeah. I think part of building your own bidding system is it's driven. It has to be driven by commercial knowledge, and it has to be driven by the people that are managing those same AdWords campaigns, which it should be. Which means that at the beginning you really have to be checking every stage, and that in your actual code you need checking mechanisms and logs to make sure that your scripts are behaving in the way that you want them to, so that you get monitors daily. But then using scripts as well, you can do a much better job of monitoring where you're at with your AdWords campaigns, just in general, than you get from any third-party tool. So we've also open sourced some what we think is quite basic, but generally quite useful, hourly spend updates. So you get an update every hour that breaks down your account by different sections of the account that tells you exactly where you're at. And you can turn that into text messages as well using Twilio integration with AdWords scripts. So that you can get a text message every hour, if you really want it, telling you how much you've spent, where you've spent it, and what your current return on investment looks like. So that's the part of the responsive bit.
So one thing you talked a little bit about the custom audience. That's a new feature. Could you explain why that is so significant, why it's such a big game changer, and also touch on where people can build out these custom audiences? Absolutely.
Well, I guess it's the biggest change in... I'm going to get some water while we're there.
Yeah, absolutely. It reminds me of when Facebook rolled out custom audiences, and Twitter. This seems like such a big deal.
Suddenly, AdWords is going from this system where you bid on keywords which indicate intent to layering on top of that customer information or audience information. So the way that custom audiences works is that you can upload your own email addresses from your customer relationship management system or your database. You can keep them as an audience within AdWords. So you can upload a history of your most recent customers, and you can apply them as an audience in your AdWords campaigns. And as an example, you're always more likely to sell to people that you've sold before if you've given them a good experience. So your ROI on that customer segment is more important. Or conversely, we work with a subscription magazine company called Which Magazine, and they have a member database. Their advertising budget is an acquisition budget. They want to acquire new members on the whole. So when you can upload the email addresses of people that they already have and exclude them from your advertising budget, then the savings can be absolutely phenomenal, and you can focus your budget on where you actually want it to go. There are countless examples, and it's relevant to every single business, every single AdWords account in the world where you've got customer information. And one of the more interesting parts about how it's played out is that the timing of things is fascinating, in that Google have probably done it 2 to 3 years after they had the capability of actually delivering it. So the cynic in me believes that they've kind of let Facebook take the flak for all of this privacy type stuff. And people are already used to this idea. So when we went to our customers and said, hey, we're going to do custom audiences for you guys, can you give us your email lists and blah, 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 they were like, yep, here you go. Lists of hundreds of thousands of email addresses, millions across the board. And it's like, that didn't happen when we first. Someone doesn't want to hear from me anymore. Okay, I get the hint. When it first happened with Facebook, when we went to ask customers for email addresses, they said, well, I'm not sure that we're allowed to do that. Like, it doesn't say the right things in our terms and conditions, and we're not sure about privacy, and like if we get bad press, and blah, blah, blah. Whereas AdWords have come in a year after Facebook have started doing it, and Twitter are already doing it, and it's like, no one's really even paying attention. So a clever strategic move, I think, based on Google's scenario with privacy at the moment, but an interesting one. And something that everyone really needs to get on. So even if you ignore everything that I've said above about bid management, custom audiences are an absolute necessity for you to get live in the next 3 weeks. So go for it.
All right. So We'll talk about this final question before we take a break with everybody. Lots and lots of resources for people, some of them on search engine land that they can download. I invite you to publish some of them on Moz at your will.
Say again, sorry?
At Moz, yes.
I will publish them on Mars, yeah,
Yes,
with pleasure.
absolutely. So have you introduced your daughter to Pokemon?
I haven't yet, no. She's.
What are you waiting for?
It's just that at the moment her code isn't very good, so I'm waiting until she cracks that piece first, and then I'll allow her to enjoy Pokemon.
You were just telling me backstage that she just now recognizes you.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. She's smart.
And, so what is your favorite Pokemon?
I would have to say Pikachu, and if you're really nice to me and you see me afterwards, then I'll do my Pikachu impression for you.
Oh, can we do it now?
Nah.
No, okay. Yeah, let's drag him on.
I mean,
Let's do it. Let's do it.
it's going to be thoroughly disappointing.
Woo! Daniel Gilbert, everybody.
Thank you very much.